balance is a really important thing to talk about. In my view, it doesn't exist. If you want to be successful, uber successful at anything in life, there's no such thing as balance. If you think about the top athletes, musicians, anybody that is the top, quartile at what they do, they don't believe in balance.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of She's Interesting. I'm your host, Rochelle Hariri. We have a very fun episode today. We have one badass entrepreneur who is here to talk to us about something we all love very much, luxury goods. So everyone, welcome Maggie Adami Boynton. She is the co-founder of ShopThing.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I first discovered ShopThing during COVID. So I know your co-founder, Rebecca, and I saw that she was posting about ShopThing and this new thing that she's working on. And right away, I was like, they're on to something. You guys initially had started with Instagram posting, live posting products. Can we talk a little bit about the inception of ShopThing, how you got started, why Instagram, and then we'll just go from there.
Yeah. Excellent observation that not most people really catch on to. But we did start on Instagram. A lot of it was, so I found this trend in Asia. I didn't invent live shopping. I wish I had. But I found the trend in Asia. We really thought about how do we take that trend that's so massive in Asia and adapt it to the North American consumer. And having spent my entire career in technology, 15 plus years, I didn't want to give up my VP level job, quit everything, start something without knowing that, this can go somewhere. And also investing a ton in technology. And so for the first year and a half of the business, we were trying to prove product market fit. Mm-hmm. And we did that via Instagram. And actually, they did a few really great things for us. One, we built this insanely engaged community on Instagram. The purchase flow was really seamless. Everything happened in a web browser. It was lovely. But then we built this audience big enough to a point where we invested in the technology. We put out an app and we were able to really nicely and very quickly move everybody into our own platform, which I've been told by a ton of people is very difficult to do.
So at what point did you realize this is working? We're making good money? And did you see a profit early on or did it take a while?
Yeah, so we're sadly not profitable.
Let's pause there for a second, just so everybody knows. They had a Series A raise in 2002, $10 million, Canadian or USD? USD. So there we go. So that's also something for everyone to consider. Please continue.
We are a venture-backed startup, which is very exciting. And in the startup world, when you're really focusing on high growth, it's difficult to be profitable. But there's a point where you realize, okay, we're onto something. For us, it was the amount of sales. And what had happened was we launched this business in November, Black Friday of 2019, which arguably maybe not the best time to launch, but whatever. We're like, let's launch a business on Black Friday. Really exciting. Sales came through. 2020 hit. January, February, March, great. Mid-March, the world closes. In those early days, our business was go into store and basically be that conduit for our customer in store in real life. And so in Toronto, we had one of the largest lockdowns globally. When the world shut down and we had just started our business, we had this moment where we're like, oh my God, we just quit our jobs, got into a brand new space in downtown Toronto, signed a lease, hired a bunch of developers, and now the entire world is shut down. So we had 2 months of scramble and panic, but this incredible thing happened when stores opened back up, but people were still not comfortable to go back into store. We started seeing like incredible growth. So we went from selling $50,000 a month to $200,000 a month. Next month was $500,000. Next month was $1 million. Like it happened so fast, Rochelle, that we went from proving product market fit to scrambling and trying to figure out how do we scale this business while we're still fulfilling out of our basements.
That is wild because even to this day, I feel like I'm still seeing you in some of the videos, which I really appreciate because it's been years now and you still haven't given up that ability to be connected to your audience and your customers. And so even though you guys have grown and scaled, some people will be like, oh, I'm taking a step back. I'm not going to be in it. Why is there a decision for you and Rebecca to still be in the forefront of these things?
Yeah, it gives us a lot of things that for us is so valuable. One, high touch with the customers. Mm-hmm. I host a live. I know instantly what my customers love, what their pain points are, what they're looking for. I communicate with them. If anybody has any problems, they know who we are. So they just message us an app. It also allows me to touch and feel my product every day in terms of like the tech products of the app. I know when there's bugs. I know how to improve it. I have a very, very close hand on that. And it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about like building relationships with these brands. I'm so curious about how that works in your business. Do you guys, is it a priority to build relationships with the retailers, with the luxury brands, or are you going through a third party? How do you make this whole ecosystem for ShopThing work?
Yeah. So for us, we consider a partner anybody that holds any inventory. So it could be a brand, a retailer, a wholesaler, a distributor. They call them jobbers in the retail space. Sometimes it's, people that have bought 3 or 4 lines down. Anybody that has access to inventory will take it. And we actually brought on a VP of partnerships that was ex Outlook. So
Mm.
she went to Outlook prior to the Nordstrom sale, helped scale them. Retail veteran was at Bergdorf before that. And so we were like, we're not retail people, we're tech people. We know nothing about this space. Let's bring in the expertise that can
So
allow us
smart.
to barter those relationships. Yeah.
When you guys were going for the Series A, was this your first time raising funding? Let's talk a little bit about how that's gone. Because, first of all, I want to give you kudos for raising that much money because we know that women get less than 2% of VC funding. So, first of all, the fact that you've done that is fantastic. Also, the fact that you've scaled beyond 7 figures, less than 3% of women in America, their businesses reach that level. So, already you guys are like a unicorn in my eyes. But let's talk about your experience first time raising venture and how that went.
Yeah. So this is actually our second startup.
Mhm.
But the one before this was a profitable business. Did you imagine? We built mobile apps for big enterprise businesses. So we never had to raise.
Yeah.
We built that, scaled it, sold it. Great. Then we were like, let's do a consumer business. What a smart idea. It's like the hardest business you could ever
Really
decide
is.
to start is consumer. But we're ambitious people. So we started this consumer business and very quickly we're like, okay, this business eats a lot of money
Yeah.
and it's going to take a ton because we have to pay for growth. We have to pay for tech. We have to do all this stuff. And so we had to go out to fundraise. Never did it before. I think one of the biggest challenges being, let's take the women part out of it because you know it, I know it. Hopefully everybody out there also knows it. But one of the biggest challenges being in the Canadian ecosystem is we don't have access to the same types of VCs, the same level of funding, especially in consumer tech, especially in e-commerce businesses. So I had a harder time doing this as opposed to if I was raising for a B2B SaaS company.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't have any of the connections. It was in the middle of COVID. Nobody was taking meetings. I try to get as many intros as I can. We first did the Canadian landscape and investors were either, didn't understand the space, didn't have enough experience, really weren't very bullish on the consumer space, or they're really conservative. Like we got a really lowball term sheet and I was like, I think we're worth more than this. And so sadly, what happens with most Canadian founders is we had to go down south. And we found just the perfect partner that had the right experience, understood what we were doing, believed in our vision, and we were able to raise.
That's amazing. Throughout this whole journey of building the company and now you're several years into it, were there any, did you hire any coaches? Did you have any mentors that you work with? Because I often find as an entrepreneur, it's hard to get out of your own head sometimes, and you need someone to remind you of how great you are. So do you have any advice on that for the listeners?
Please do it. I did not do it.
Yeah.
I was very bad at it. And actually, one of the tips that I give when I'm asked, like, what's your best advice for a founder is build a community of other founders around you. I didn't do it early on, but then I got into the C100 and I built a little community there. And then I'm now part of an organization called YPO, so Young Presidents Organization. And I have a very tight knit group of people from that organization that I spend a lot of time with, which is so valuable because, I mean, you have your co-founders and you can all, obviously share and commiserate and all that fun stuff, but you don't really have anybody else to be able to share experiences with outside of
that group.
Exactly. And outside of your own organization to get views from maybe a different industry. Maybe somebody else is struggling with something similar, but not within your company.
Yeah.
And so I would say probably one of the most beneficial things for me over the last 2 years has been exactly that, building that network of people that I can talk to, because you can't with your employees, and you need somebody to be able to rely on.
Let's talk about your co-founder relationship. This is something like you guys are basically married now. So how did you determine that you wanted to work with each other when the idea first came to you? Did you even think that you needed a co-founder? Let's dig into this, because I know there's probably people that are listening right now that have had issues with previous co-founders, current co-founders. How do you determine who you're going to marry in business?
It is two people that you're marrying. One is your co-founder, and the second is your investor. So you have to be very selective. I can't say I've learned that the hard way because I haven't, but I've heard from others. You have to be very selective as to who you bring, obviously, into your circle. So for me, it was a very easy choice. Two of my co-founders, all of us have worked together in the previous business for 10 plus
That
years.
helps, yeah.
It helps a lot. Rebecca, I had to actually win over. I had to court her into the business. So she's very ambitious, super smart. She was actually working on a whole other business. And I just slowly courted her over time, started the business, started proving product market fit, rented a space, hired a bunch of people, and then just slowly kind of convinced her to come join me. Probably the best decision I've made. It's to have somebody who you can bounce ideas off of that thinks the way you do. And it really did help that we had already been working together for 10 years. So I knew, we knew each other so well. We knew each other's working styles. We knew each other's strengths, where she thrives, I'm maybe not as good as, and vice versa. And so operationally, it works so well.
That's really great to hear. How do you guys determine what roles each person will have? Because I think that's sometimes becomes a blurry line between friends. So was it like you said, you already knew what your strengths were, or was it a matter of not necessarily the strengths, but also what you wanted to work on?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So there's actually four of us. One is a tech co-founder, very easy. None of us are techies. We worked in tech, but none of us are techies. So he takes tech. Rebecca has always led marketing in our previous life. And while that's something I can also do, I'm much more heavily on the ops side and the managing people side. And so that was like a really easy divide.
Mm-hmm.
And then our other founder, Melody, she's also an ops. So the two of us were like, I'll take strategy and ops, and you take like ops.
Since you've had ShopThing, have you noticed any differences in consumer trends, what people are looking for, and how do you adopt to those trends so that you guys are top of mind? Because having loyalty from consumers these days is so hard, especially with the way the economy is and people are worried about so many different things. What trends are you seeing? And then how do you make sure that you guys are on top of that?
We're in fashion. The trends change so fast. And I have found since the inception of TikTok, or at least since we've started adopting it as our preferred social network in North America, it's been even faster.
Mm-hmm.
You see skinny jeans in one day, and the next day it's, low rise baggy, and the next day it's.
Can you tell me? Because as a millennial, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all my skinny jeans.
Get rid of them. Skinny jeans are coming back in, but not in the same iteration as we've had them. So get rid of that version of a skinny jean. Another more relaxed version of a skinny jean is coming back in. But I've seen in the last 4 or 5 years, the trends change so fast. And so for us, it's really about noticing the trend and then making sure we're going with it. So I'll give you an example. Prior to COVID, people were, wearing regular clothing. We enter into COVID and athleisure becomes a massive thing. Streetwear becomes a massive thing. Essentials, Drew, all of that became a massive thing. So for us, it's figure out, notice the signs, and then start selling those brands. And then there's also this phenomenon, I call it the ShopThing effect, where there's a ton of brands that we have created within this ecosystem. So I'll give you an example. One of them is Jacquemus. A lot of the North American consumer did not know Jacquemus. It's a French brand, a really nice luxury brand, a little more attainable than some of the others. I would say, in the Canadian market, really brought Jacquemus into play. And I hear that from my customers as well. Another one is Bash. Bash was a partner of ours, and we would do events with them. And they would tell us after we would leave, for months later, people would go in and go, I bought this from ShopThing and I love your brand now. And so now I come and buy you in store. And so being able to do that also was...
Is that part of the strategy too, to find goods that are difficult to get in the Canadian market and then build those partnerships?
Absolutely. And not just in the Canadian market, in the North American market as well. Anytime you can find access to goods that are hard to find, there's a supply that you'll have a demand for. And so, yeah, totally a strategy across the board.
Do you guys hold on to any of the goods yourselves? Okay, let's dig into that part of the business. How does it work? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, do you need a massive distribution center? Are you guys packing things? How does that work? Where do you get it from?
Yeah, so we hold no inventory. Part of our model has always been on consignment. So we partner with brands, retailers, wholesalers, et cetera. We'll go in, we'll sell their goods, and then whatever we sell, we take hold of and distribute. So we actually do have distribution centers, but not as big as you would need if were holding inventory. And then with the introduction of our new marketplace model. So traditionally, just for your listeners that might not be aware, traditionally for us, we've hired full-time sellers, we call them full-time sellers who we partner with our brands, retailers, wholesalers to host these incredible events. As of January this year, we've now opened it up. So really anybody can sell. If you wanted to sell your closet, you could. But what we're seeing happening, which is incredible, is we're bringing on all of these global partners that you would not have access to otherwise. From Beijing to Tokyo to Dubai to Milan.
That's so exciting.
It's amazing. Like access, we're giving you access to them and we're giving them access to our North American consumer. So it's really this beautiful open marketplace where anybody can sell and buy luxury.
That is so exciting. This business keeps evolving and changing, and there's so many different aspects of it. Where do you see things going for ShopThing in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so it's a lot of that. It's funny because I have meetings with investors all the time, and I'm constantly asked, what does your competitive market look like, and what is the landscape and all this? And honestly, the answer changes every year.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are constantly evolving our business and putting ourselves into a different category, which I believe makes us even more competitive, gives us more of a competitive advantage because we're not staying still. Like for me, if I'm not innovating and I'm not evolving and I'm not listening to the needs and the demands of the consumer, then I'm a stagnant business and somebody else will crush me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm constantly evolving my business, not constantly in a way where you're like, what on earth is ShopThing doing? But listening to the consumer and evolving it in a way that works for her, then good for me. I'll keep growing.
What's been the biggest challenge since you've started this business? It could be like 1 or 2 things and how you've overcome them.
Fundraising is always the biggest challenge as a female. As you know, it's some of the work that you do, I think, is to help on that front. So if we take fundraising out of it, just on the business side, scale is really challenging. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to be able to scale a business as fast as your investors want, as fast as the market wants, access to supply. I mean, I have really hungry customers that will buy whatever I bring them, but then I have to find access to supply. And then when I bring supply, I have to ramp up my customers. And so we're a 3-sided marketplace. I have to always make sure that all 3 levers of the marketplace are growing at the same time, because if one is way out of whack, then it's hurting some other part of the marketplace. So I picked a very complex business.
You did, but you're thriving and we love that. Let's switch gears a little bit because I want to get to know Maggie, the entrepreneur, Maggie, the mom, Maggie, the friend, Maggie, the badass. So you have 3 kids.
I do.
You have a thriving business. You have how many staff now?
We're about 55, 60.
How are you creating productivity throughout your day and doing all of these different things? I'm assuming your partner, your husband, you guys have maybe a system down. For those who are listening that might be struggling to find, I don't even think balance exists, but to find a way to make their life easier, let's say. What have you done that's worked for you and what can we learn?
Yeah. I want to make a point about balance because I think balance is a really important thing to talk about. In my view, it doesn't exist. If you want to be successful, uber successful at anything in life, there's no such thing as balance. If you think about the top athletes, musicians, anybody that is the top, quartile at what they do, they don't believe in balance. They, play basketball all day, every day. They paint all day, every day. They play music all day, every day. So this notion of having balance when you want to achieve greatness, I think it's okay. If you're okay with not having balance, then that works for you. And I'm okay with not having balance. Let's put it out there. I'm not an advocate for work-life balance. I don't know what it is. I have no idea how to exercise that. But I do have 3 kids. I do have a spouse. I do, like to take vacations and do other things. For me, it's just prioritizing.
Mm-hmm.
Prioritize the thing that you have to work on. And it gets really overwhelming when you try and prioritize too far out. Obviously, you have big vision, big strategy, all that fun stuff. But when you think about at a task level, prioritize on a daily basis, prioritize on a weekly basis, just get things off of your list. And then my other advice is when I can be there with my family, I'm very present. So I travel a lot. I'm not there all the time. But when I am there, I unplug, everything's gone. I'm fully focused on my kids and my family because, that's the time that they're going to remember.
Let's talk a little bit about mom guilt. So I don't have any kids. However, a lot of my girlfriends do, and they travel for work. And I actually just did an interview with Amber Mack as well. And she also was talking about mom guilt. So, and I think this is just an opportunity to like real talk, have a conversation about what that's like and, how you've managed that, how you've experienced it, and how do you just move beyond that to be like, this is better for my kids?
It's so hard. It took me many years.
Hmm.
Actually, I would say maybe only in the last 12-ish months, I feel more resolved with it.
Mm,
The truth is, it exists, and society tells us that we have to be a certain way with our kids, and we should be at home with them, and we should pick them up from school, and we shouldn't travel so much, and we shouldn't. But I very selfishly didn't want to put the things that I want in life aside because I have children. I also want to spend as much time as I can with them. And so the way I've resolved it is one, I do think I'm presenting this incredible role model for my children. I have a daughter,
hmm.
and I tell her all the time, like, you can achieve anything you want. You can be great. It doesn't just have to be the men. You can do it. And then I'm showing my sons that women can be as great as men and they can achieve as much, if not more, as men can. And I have the most supportive husband
Hmm.
who allows me to be able to do that. And so while mom guilt is real and everybody's going to feel it, you have to just get it in, you have to get to a place yourself where you can feel resolved and know that at least when you are there, you're very present.
Yeah. That's very beautifully said. And I like the fact that you mentioned the support of your partner, because I think that's one of the biggest life decisions that you make is who you partner with and ensuring that you have a unified vision and understanding of what's important to you, how you want to live your life. And also, if you want to have children together, how you want to parent. I think that's really important and letting your partner know, like, I'm not the type that's going to sacrifice my whole life to just raise my kids. My life doesn't revolve around the kids revolve around my life. And so bring them into the things that you're doing and I center yourself. I see that happens quite often with women or used to. I don't think it happens as much now where they would be so into the lives of their children and making sure that they are these good humans that by the time they go off to university, they've lost full identity of who they are. And then they have to refine themselves again later in life. And I find that to be a very scary thing. I don't know. Maybe that's why I haven't had kids. I'll figure it out. It's turning into a therapy session. But it's so nice. And part of the reason why I share She's interesting stories is because I want other women to see that you can do it or that the feelings are normal. If you are an entrepreneur and you do feel guilt, it's okay to feel guilt. We're human. These things like this time will pass. Your kids will get older. They will learn to spend time on their own. They'll learn to do things for themselves. And then it gets to a point where they want to be independent and they need you less and less. And so, anyways, thank you for sharing that part of your life with us. What would you say has been your biggest like personal growth moment since having this business?
Ooh, you're asking all the hard questions today. For me, personal growth has been figuring out a way to do it all.
Hmm.
So it's understanding that I can run a business and I can have a family and I can have employees that love me
Hmm.
and I can scale a company and I can fundraise and just that I can achieve all the things that I want to. I think I always thought that I could my whole life, but once you actually do it, then you're like, oh wow, I can do it. So like, yeah, it's just part of the journey has been realizing that there isn't anything I don't think I can do.
Hmm. One question I ask a lot of the guests that come on is their POV on money. Because I find as women, we don't talk about money enough. We don't talk about salaries enough. And that's one of the things that actually holds us back in society. If we talked more openly about money, then it wouldn't be such an issue for us. What is your mindset when it comes to money and has it shifted throughout the years?
Education around money and how to manage money is just like poor, non-existent. And so even with us at home, we're starting to take steps to teach our children about how do you save? How do you earn? How do you like, I didn't come from a family that did that. We're also an immigrant family and it's just not part of our culture. People don't really talk about money. It just either is there or isn't there.
Hmm.
And so even for me, I think there's a lot of learning from my husband who grew up in a different way where they did talk about money a lot. It's like there's a lot of education and good that comes from talking about money, as you said, even when you just talk about, how much do women make? How much should you make? How much do you make compared to your male counterparts? And what are you worth? So my view is I think there are really nice, constructive, open conversations that can be and should be had about money. My view is the earlier, the better. Start having them with your kids as early as possible. And not just your kids, but in general, the educational system should start having it with everybody's kids so that we don't have these issues later on in life.
Did you have any entrepreneurs in your family where you would see this in action? Like, was it something that you'd always thought that you wanted to do, was go down the entrepreneurial path, or is it something that just happened over time?
No, very entrepreneurial. So I'm Persian by background, and we are just kind of like an entrepreneurial breed. But my parents were always self-starters, entrepreneurial, many businesses throughout their life. I watched my mom literally build and scale many companies.
Mhm.
And obviously seeing her do that was amazing. And so at an early age, I remember it's very embarrassing because I'm gonna date myself a little bit. But at a very early age, when eBay first came out, I started buying goods from China.
Mhm.
Okay. This is like the very first iteration of e-commerce. Nothing else existed. Okay. Don't ask me how I found goods in China. Don't even remember.
Like Ali didn't exist.
Nothing existed. Literally nothing existed. I found some like weird random networks of people, and I'd buy these mukluks. Do you remember mukluks?
Oh my God, I do. Yeah.
I would buy mukluks from Asia and sell them on eBay. And so I created this eBay store. I was 16 years old, making $60,000 a year on eBay.
Good for you. That's awesome.
But always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I loved business in all of its iterations and forms. I didn't end up studying business in school. I actually went into psychology. Not sure why, even though that was obviously my calling. But yes, at a young age, it surrounded me, and I was always encouraged by my mom to move forward with.
I'm so curious. At that age, making $60K, what did you just like go shopping?
Yeah,
What'd you do with
obviously.
that?
This is actually how it started.
Yeah.
I've always loved fashion. And so I'd be like, Mom, I want to buy XYZ. And she's like, you have to earn your own money.
Mhm.
So go earn your own money. And working a part-time job was very difficult to earn a lot of money because you also have school. And so I was like, okay, well, if I buy 5 mukluks and I sell them and pay off all of them and have enough money for whatever, now I can also buy whatever I want. And she was like, if you earn your own money, do what you want with it, which she probably should have told me to save some of it. But I learned that lesson later in life. But yes, it was my addiction to fashion that led me to start this
So
small
it
little business.
actually was just an investment in your future. Is what you're saying.
Exactly. When I tell this story, I'm like, this is the beginnings of ShopThing. That was it.
Yeah. I love that because like when I was growing up, my mom was always like, save your money, save your money. So
Our moms needed to talk.
like seriously, I'm like,
There to be some balance.
but what bothers me is like, why didn't you tell me like anything about investing money? Stop telling me to save my money because now I have a hoarder mentality and that's not right because the whole point, and same thing, like Persian immigrant family that came here from Iran, and instead of saving money, like you need to use your money to work for you. And that's taken me years to understand because before I was like, no, I have to save all of it. And like Persians like cash. That's
They
the
really
thing.
do.
But that's not how the world works anymore. Like it's better to have equity and build these things and like buy properties than just like hoard your money. And so I think that it's important for anyone who's listening, who has daughters or sons or whatever, even for yourself as you're listening, use your money to do things with. And even we joke about Maggie's experience with the $60,000 and then going shopping. But honestly, it has paid off because now you have this really growing, strong company. And if you hadn't taken those risks and done that stuff when you were younger, your life would have taken a different turn and different
Totally.
path.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, I got ripped off by some people. If I had invested that $60,000 a year, I might not even need this business. I did not do that though. But you learn, and it's kind of that appetite for risk too really helps.
Yeah. Any final words for anyone who's considering taking the leap or who is a founder right now that may be trying to find what type of founder or entrepreneur they are?
Is our audience geographically located anywhere?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will say, growing up for me, there was probably 5 to 10 other companies I could have, should have, would have started, but I never felt like I could. Either not the right timing, the ecosystem, I didn't feel like I had the right support. Today, there are incubators, programs, grants. There is more support now than there ever has been for entrepreneurs. So if there's something that you're thinking about, that you're like, I just want to try it, there's never been a better landscape to do that. Just do it. The way I thought about it is the worst case scenario, I lose 1 year of my life.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for joining us today on She's Interesting. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. And you're my first Persian guest. So
I love that.
I love that.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening and tuning into She's Interesting yet again. Please make sure to review and rate She's Interesting. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and we'll be coming back to you in another 2 weeks with a new episode. Have a good one.